Good morning/afternoon/evening, everyone. Today I invite you to reflect on a profound idea: God as awareness and consciousness. For centuries, we have imagined God as an external being, residing in the heavens, ruling over creation. But what if God is not separate from us? What if God is the very essence of our being, the awareness that perceives, the consciousness that experiences, the life force that flows through all things? God is not an external force residing in the heavens, separate from us, but rather the very essence of our being, our awareness, our consciousness. This realization transforms our understanding of divinity, shifting it from an object of worship to a state of being. When we begin to see God as something within us, rather than outside of us, we unlock a deeper relationship with ourselves and the world around us. This perspective is not about denying the existence of God, but rather about redefining our connection to the divine. For centuries, religious traditions have depicted God as a powerful being, overseeing creation, rewarding righteousness, and punishing wrongdoing. While this idea provides comfort to many, it also creates a sense of separation. It makes people believe they must seek God through external means, through religious institutions, rituals, or divine intervention. However, when we look closely at spiritual teachings, we find a deeper truth. God is not separate from us, but exists as the very awareness that allows us to experience life itself. Consider the words spoken to Moses in Exodus 3:14. I am that I am. This statement reveals a profound spiritual truth. God's identity is not tied to form, place, or name, but to existence itself. The phrase I am signifies being, consciousness, and awareness. It is not a distant force, but the very essence of who we are. Whenever we say, I am, we are affirming our existence, our awareness, our presence in the moment. This simple yet powerful realization points to the fact that our very consciousness is divine. Mystics and spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized this understanding. Neville Goddard, a well-known teacher of the power of the mind, boldly stated that the very I amness that you now declare is God. He explained that the key to understanding God is not looking outside, but recognizing that our awareness, our ability to think, feel, and imagine, is itself the divine presence. This means that we are not separate from God. We are expressions of God's consciousness, experiencing life through our own unique perspectives. When we embrace this truth, it changes the way we live. No longer do we feel powerless, waiting for an external God to answer prayers or intervene in our lives. Instead, we realize that by shifting our awareness, by assuming the feeling of our desires fulfilled, we can shape our own experiences. This aligns with the idea that consciousness is the creative power of the universe. Everything we see, do, and experience begins with thought, with awareness. If we assume separation from God, we live in limitation. But if we recognize that God is the awareness within us, we step into our creative power. This understanding also deepens our relationship with others. If God is awareness, and we all share the same consciousness, then we are all connected at the deepest level. The distinctions of race, religion, and nationality fade in importance when we realize that at our core we are all expressions of the same divine awareness. This realization fosters love, compassion, and unity, breaking down barriers of separation. By accepting that God is within us, we also shift the way we approach challenges. Instead of praying for external miracles, we turn inward, knowing that the power to transform our lives lies in our own consciousness. We begin to practice faith not as a plea for divine intervention, but as a knowing, a certainty that what we assume and believe will manifest. This is not just wishful thinking, but a profound truth supported by spiritual wisdom and personal experience. Understanding God as awareness and consciousness is not just a philosophical concept. It is a call to awakening. It invites us to stop searching for God outside of ourselves and to realize that we have always been connected to the divine. When we fully embrace this truth, we step into our power as co-creators of our reality, shaping our lives through the power of thought, belief, and imagination. God is not separate from us. God is the awareness through which we experience life itself. Consciousness is the foundation of all creation. Everything we experience, see, and interact with first begins in the realm of consciousness. This is why many spiritual teachings emphasize that God is not a separate being outside of us, but the very awareness through which we perceive reality. If consciousness is the creative power behind all things, then understanding how it works is the key to shaping our lives. The moment we become aware of something, we give it life. Thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are not passive. They hold creative power. What we consistently focus on in our minds eventually manifests in our external world. This is why it is said that consciousness is the creative force of the universe. It determines what we attract, what we experience, and how we interpret reality. Neville Goddard emphasized this truth in his teachings, stating that consciousness is the one and only reality. He explained that nothing exists for us unless we become aware of it. Our entire experience of life is filtered through our consciousness, meaning that we have the ability to shape our world simply by changing our thoughts and assumptions. This idea aligns with spiritual scriptures that teach, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Proverbs 23:7. It suggests that our thoughts do not merely describe our lives, they create them. To understand the power of consciousness, consider how imagination influences reality. Everything that exists in the physical world was first imagined. A house, a book, a piece of music, or a scientific breakthrough all began as thoughts in someone's mind. The same principle applies to our personal lives. If we imagine success, joy, and abundance with conviction, we align ourselves with those experiences. If we dwell on fear, lack, and limitation, we invite those conditions into our reality. This realization places great responsibility on us. Since consciousness creates, we must be mindful of what we entertain in our minds. Every day, we are either creating deliberately or unconsciously. Many people live by default, allowing external circumstances to dictate their thoughts and emotions. They react to life rather than intentionally shaping it. But those who understand that their consciousness is divine power take control of their inner world. They choose their thoughts wisely, knowing that whatever they assume to be true will eventually become their reality. The power of consciousness also explains why faith is such a transformative force. Faith is not merely belief in something unseen. It is the alignment of consciousness with a desired reality. When we truly believe in something, we internalize it as truth before it appears in the physical world. This is why Jesus often spoke about faith, saying, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Mark 11:24. The key here is to believe that it is already done, to assume the state of fulfillment before the evidence appears. This is not just wishful thinking. It is a conscious act of creation. Understanding consciousness as the creative power of the universe also deepens our connection with God. If God is the source of all creation and consciousness is the tool through which creation happens, then our awareness is our direct link to the divine. This means that prayer is not about begging an external God for help, but about aligning our consciousness with divine truth. When we pray with conviction, knowing that our desires are already fulfilled, we engage in the very process of creation. Moreover, this understanding brings freedom. Many people feel powerless in their lives, believing they are victims of fate or circumstance. But when we accept that consciousness creates reality, we reclaim our power. We no longer blame the world for our conditions. Instead, we take responsibility for our thoughts, knowing that they shape our experiences. This does not mean we will never face challenges, but it does mean we approach them differently. Instead of seeing obstacles as external forces working against us, we recognize them as reflections of our inner state. We can then shift our consciousness to align with the outcomes we desire. In this way, we move from being passive observers of life to active participants in the divine process of creation. To live with the awareness that consciousness is the creative force of the universe is to live with intentionality. It means being mindful of what we accept as true, for whatever we assume and believe will shape our world. It means understanding that God is not separate from us, but present in every moment of awareness. When we grasp this truth, we begin to see life differently. We stop waiting for miracles and start creating them. We step into our power, knowing that we are not just experiencing reality, we are shaping it with every thought, belief, and assumption we hold. Awareness is the foundation of our existence. It is the silent observer behind all thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Long before we identify with names, roles, or beliefs, we are simply aware. This awareness is unchanging. It was present in childhood, remains in adulthood, and will continue beyond. It is the one thing that has never altered despite all the transformations in our lives. This unchanging awareness is the essence of who we truly are. When we strip away all labels, thoughts, and external identifications, what remains is pure awareness. This realization leads to a profound spiritual truth. Awareness itself is divine. Many spiritual traditions teach that God is omnipresent, meaning God exists everywhere and in everything. However, if we truly examine this, we see that the most fundamental and universal presence in all beings is awareness. Every experience we have is made possible because we are aware. Without awareness, nothing would exist for us. This suggests that God is not a distant figure, but the very awareness that allows us to experience life. Neville Goddard emphasized this idea when he taught that your own wonderful human imagination is God. While this may seem radical to some, it is not far from what religious scriptures have always implied. In the Bible, Luke 17:21 states, "The kingdom of God is within you." This means that divine presence is not found in external places, but within our own consciousness. The more we understand this, the more we recognize that seeking God outside ourselves is unnecessary. Instead, we should turn inward, for the awareness through which we experience life is itself divine. One way to recognize the divine nature of awareness is through self-inquiry. If you close your eyes and ask, "Who am I?" without referring to your name, age, job, or past experiences, you will find that you cannot define yourself in ordinary terms. What remains is simply the awareness of being. This awareness has no form, no limits, and no beginning or end. It is the same presence in all people, regardless of background, culture, or beliefs. It is universal and eternal, qualities that are often attributed to God. Understanding that awareness is divine also changes how we relate to life. Most people go through life reacting to circumstances, believing that external events dictate their happiness. However, if we recognize that consciousness is the creative power of the universe, we shift from being passive observers to active participants in creation. Instead of being controlled by thoughts and emotions, we begin to observe them with detachment, knowing that we are not our thoughts, we are the awareness behind them. This realization leads to inner peace, as we stop identifying with fleeting worries and fears. Furthermore, this perspective allows us to see others differently. If awareness is divine, and the same awareness exists in everyone, then we are all connected at the deepest level. The differences we perceive, race, religion, status, are merely surface-level distinctions. At the core, we are all expressions of the same divine consciousness. This understanding fosters love, compassion, and unity. Instead of seeing others as separate individuals, we begin to recognize them as reflections of the same divine presence that resides in us. Another profound implication of this truth is that our awareness holds creative power. Since consciousness is the foundation of all experience, what we assume and believe shapes our reality. If we hold thoughts of lack, fear, or limitation, we manifest those conditions. But if we consciously align with thoughts of abundance, love, and peace, we attract those experiences. This is why being mindful of our thoughts and beliefs is so important. When we realize that awareness is divine, we start to use it with intention. Instead of letting negative patterns dictate our lives, we choose to create with wisdom and purpose. To fully embrace this truth, we must cultivate presence. Too often, we live in the past or future, rarely paying attention to the present moment. Yet, the present is where God's presence is most fully experienced. When we practice mindfulness, fully engaging with each moment, we become more attuned to the divine awareness that is always present within us. Simple practices such as meditation, conscious breathing, and gratitude help us reconnect with this truth. In the end, realizing that awareness is divine is a transformative understanding. It shifts us from feeling powerless to recognizing that we are intimately connected to the creative force of the universe. It allows us to move beyond fear and limitation, embracing life with confidence and trust. And most importantly, it deepens our connection to God, not as an external being, but as the very awareness through which we live, think, and create. When we fully embody this truth, we no longer seek outside ourselves for guidance or salvation. Instead, we turn inward, where the presence of God has always been, waiting for us to awaken to its reality. Awareness is eternal and limitless. It is the one aspect of our existence that never changes. From the moment we were born, through childhood, into adulthood, and even as we grow old, the awareness that perceives our experiences remains the same. The body changes, thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, but the awareness behind them is constant. This unchanging nature of awareness is proof that it is beyond time, beyond physical form, and beyond limitation. This realization leads to a profound understanding. Our true self is not the temporary body or mind, but the eternal awareness that witnesses all experiences. When we deeply contemplate our existence, we notice that everything we identify with is temporary. Our name was given to us, our roles in life change, and our beliefs evolve over time. However, there is something that has remained unchanged: the simple awareness of being. If we close our eyes and reflect, we realize that the same consciousness that observed our childhood is still present now. This means that awareness itself is not bound by age or physicality. It is timeless. This insight aligns with the idea that God is eternal and infinite. If God is beyond time and space, and if our awareness is also beyond time and space, then this suggests a direct connection between our true self and the divine. Many spiritual traditions teach that God is the ever-present observer, the witness of all creation. But when we explore our own awareness, we find that it too is always present, always witnessing, never fading away. This leads to a powerful realization. The eternal awareness we experience is, in fact, divine in nature. Neville Goddard often spoke about the unchanging nature of consciousness, stating that the same awareness that you had as a child is the awareness you have now. This means that our essence, our consciousness, is untouched by time. The physical body ages, circumstances shift, but the awareness behind our experiences remains pure and constant. This understanding dissolves the fear of death. If awareness is not tied to the body, then it does not cease when the body perishes. Instead, it continues, just as it always has. The recognition that awareness is eternal and limitless also transforms how we perceive reality. When we identify solely with the body and mind, we feel confined by limitations. We believe in scarcity, fear, and the struggle of survival. But when we understand that our true nature is limitless awareness, we begin to see life differently. We stop viewing ourselves as small and powerless, and instead recognize that we are infinite beings capable of experiencing and creating far more than we ever imagined. This perspective also changes how we handle challenges. Many people react to difficulties with fear and resistance, believing that circumstances control them. However, when we shift our awareness to the eternal, unshaken presence within us, we find an inner stability that cannot be disturbed by external events. Just as the sky remains unchanged regardless of storms passing through, our awareness remains unaffected by temporary struggles. This brings a profound sense of peace, as we realize that no matter what happens, our true self remains untouched. Moreover, understanding the limitless nature of awareness allows us to expand beyond perceived barriers. Society often teaches us to accept limitations, that we can only achieve so much, that we must follow certain rules, that life is restricted by external conditions. But when we recognize that our awareness is infinite, we begin to see that these limitations are illusions. We are not confined by circumstances unless we believe we are. Our consciousness has the power to transcend any obstacle, and when we align our thoughts with this truth, we begin to manifest extraordinary possibilities. This realization is at the heart of many spiritual teachings. The Bible states, "With God all things are possible." Matthew 19:26. If God is infinite awareness and we share that awareness, then we too have access to limitless potential. The only thing that holds us back is our belief in limitations. When we free ourselves from these self-imposed barriers, we tap into the divine power within us. To truly embrace this truth, we must practice shifting our focus from temporary experiences to the unchanging awareness behind them. Meditation, mindfulness, and self-inquiry help us detach from fleeting thoughts and connect with the eternal presence within. The more we rest in this awareness, the more we realize that we are not bound by time, space, or physical conditions. We are, and always have been, infinite. In the end, understanding that awareness is eternal and limitless is a gateway to true spiritual freedom. It allows us to live without fear, to embrace challenges with confidence, and to create without restriction. It reminds us that we are not just temporary beings moving through life. We are timeless, boundless consciousness, forever connected to the divine. When we fully accept this, we step into our true power, living with the knowledge that we are, and always have been, one with the infinite. Consciousness is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the physical world and the spiritual realm. It is through consciousness that we experience reality, and it is through consciousness that reality is shaped. Everything that exists in our external world first begins as an idea, a vision, or a thought in the mind. This simple but profound truth reveals the immense power that lies within us. If consciousness is the tool through which creation happens, then by mastering our awareness, we can shape our lives in ways beyond our imaginations. Many people believe that their circumstances are fixed, that life happens to them rather than through them. However, when we recognize that consciousness is the source of all experience, we realize that we are not passive observers, we are active participants in creation. Our thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions are the building blocks of our reality. What we consistently hold in our consciousness will eventually manifest in our lives. This is why two people can experience the same situation differently, because their inner states determine how they perceive and respond to external events. This concept is not just spiritual but practical. Consider how inventions, works of art, and technological advancements come into being. Before anything is created in the physical world, it must first exist in someone's mind. A painter envisions a masterpiece before putting brush to canvas. An architect imagines a building before drawing blueprints. An entrepreneur sees a business idea before it becomes reality. In the same way, our personal lives are shaped by what we continuously imagine and believe to be true. Neville Goddard often taught that imagination is God. This means that the power to create, transform, and shape our experiences lies within our own consciousness. When we imagine something vividly and believe in its reality, we set the process of creation into motion. If we imagine success and abundance, we align ourselves with those experiences. If we dwell on fear and lack, we bring those conditions into our lives. This is why mastering consciousness is the key to changing our reality. The teachings of Jesus also reflect this understanding. In Mark 11:24, it is written, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." This is not just a metaphor, but a direct instruction on the nature of creation. To believe that something is already yours, even before you see it, is to align consciousness with the desired reality. When we do this, the unseen becomes seen, and what was once an idea becomes an experience. However, many people struggle to harness this power because they are unaware of how their consciousness operates. They allow negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, and external influences to dictate their reality. They react to circumstances instead of consciously shaping them. But the moment we take control of our awareness, we begin to create deliberately rather than by default. We stop accepting life as it is and start molding it into what it can be. One of the most powerful ways to harness the creative power of consciousness is through assumption. Neville Goddard taught that assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This means that if we want to experience something, we must first feel as if it is already true. If we desire love, we must feel loved. If we seek prosperity, we must assume the mindset of abundance. By doing so, we align our inner state with the reality we wish to create, and in time, the external world reflects this inner transformation. Another key aspect of mastering consciousness is living in the present moment. Many people are either trapped in the past or anxious about the future. But true power lies in the now. The present moment is where creation happens. When we focus our awareness fully on the present, we become conscious creators rather than unconscious reactors. Practices like meditation, visualization, and affirmations help us direct our consciousness toward what we desire rather than being influenced by external circumstances. This understanding also leads to deep spiritual awareness. If consciousness is the force behind creation, and if we share in that consciousness, then we are co-creators with the divine. This is why Jesus said in John 10:34, "Is it not written in your law, I have said, you are gods?" This statement is a direct affirmation of the power we hold within us. We are not separate from God. We are extensions of divine consciousness, capable of shaping our world through the power of awareness. Mastering consciousness does not mean that life will always be without challenges. But it does mean that we approach challenges differently. Instead of feeling helpless, we recognize that every situation is a reflection of our inner state. If we want to change something, we do not fight against the external world, we shift our consciousness. As within, so without. By understanding that consciousness is the creative force of the universe, we reclaim our power. We stop waiting for miracles and start creating them. We begin to live intentionally, shaping our reality through thought, belief, and imagination. And most importantly, we come to know that we are not separate from God. We are divine beings, capable of manifesting infinite possibilities through the power of awareness. The realization that God is awareness and consciousness leads to a profound truth. Everything we seek already exists within us. Most people spend their lives searching for meaning, happiness, and fulfillment in external things, wealth, relationships, achievements, believing that these will bring them peace. However, This pursuit often leads to disappointment, because external circumstances are temporary and ever-changing. True fulfillment can only be found within, in the recognition that we are already complete as conscious beings. When we understand that awareness itself is divine, we realize that we lack nothing, and everything we need is already present in our consciousness. This understanding shifts our entire perspective on life. Instead of looking outside ourselves for validation, success, or happiness, we turn inward. We begin to see that the source of love, abundance, and peace is not in material things, but in the state of our consciousness. When we align with this truth, external circumstances naturally begin to reflect our inner state. If we are at peace within, we experience peace in our outer world. If we feel abundant in our consciousness, abundance manifests in our lives. This is why spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized the importance of inner work. Jesus said in Luke 17:21, "The kingdom of God is within you." This means that everything we seek, divine connection, wisdom, fulfillment, is already inside us. But most people do not realize this because they are too focused on the external world. They believe that happiness will come when they achieve a certain goal, acquire a certain possession, or meet a certain person. But even when they attain these things, the satisfaction is fleeting and they soon begin seeking the next source of happiness. This cycle continues endlessly until one realizes that true fulfillment comes from within. Neville Goddard taught that creation is finished. This means that everything that could ever exist already exists in the realm of consciousness. We do not have to struggle to create something new. We simply have to align with the version of reality we desire. If we want love, we must embody love. If we want success, we must assume the state of success. The external world is merely a reflection of our inner state, and when we shift our awareness, our reality transforms accordingly. This understanding also leads to greater self-trust. Many people doubt themselves, questioning whether they are capable, worthy, or deserving of their desires. But when we recognize that consciousness is divine and that we are an expression of this divine awareness, we see that we are already whole. There is nothing lacking in us. We do not need to become something more to be worthy of love, success, or peace. We only need to recognize that we already are these things at our core. The moment we accept this, our external reality begins to align with this truth. Living from this awareness also brings deep inner peace. When we stop chasing external validation and recognize that everything we seek is already within us, we no longer feel restless or anxious. We become grounded in the present moment, knowing that we lack nothing. This does not mean we stop striving for goals or growth, but we no longer do so from a place of desperation or fear. Instead, we create from a place of wholeness, knowing that whatever we desire is already ours in consciousness. This realization is the key to true spiritual freedom. When we understand that our awareness is divine, that everything we seek is already within us, and that our consciousness shapes our reality, we stop living in fear and limitation. We begin to live with confidence, joy, and purpose. We see that we are not separate from God, but are direct expressions of divine consciousness. This awareness transforms our lives, allowing us to move through the world with peace, power, and the deep knowing that we are, and always have been, complete. The realization that God is awareness and consciousness transforms the way we perceive ourselves and the world. It shifts us from a mindset of limitation to one of infinite possibility. Instead of searching for fulfillment outside, we recognize that everything we seek already exists within us. Our consciousness is the creative force behind our experiences, shaping reality based on our thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. When we align with this truth, we no longer feel powerless. We become conscious creators of our lives. This understanding brings deep inner peace as we stop chasing external validation and embrace our inherent completeness. It allows us to move beyond fear, knowing that we are always connected to the divine presence within. Ultimately, the journey to discovering God is not about looking outward, but turning inward. By realizing that our awareness is divine, we awaken to our true nature and live with purpose, love, and infinite potential.